Hello, and welcome to this edition of Bite Size Performance Psychology. In this video, what we're going to look at is some work that I did with an athlete, and the athlete was already what you would classify as world class, performed at that stage and was successful at that level. But the ideas that we generated from the session that I'm going to talk you through completely applicable to anybody who's interested in performing and what it takes to perform. So the attributes which he's identified in relation to his particular sport are generally world-class mind traits anyway. So you could take them into whatever sport you participate in, and you could also take them to whichever level you happen to perform at. So remember, when I'm talking through this video, when I'm referring to world class, what I'm referring to is performing at the top end of your potential. So that's available for everyone, and it's a choice. The attitude and the personality traits, whatever you want to call them, they're a personal choice of whether you're engaging or not. But this is what worked for this athlete, and hopefully there might be some ideas in there that you can use in your own performance as well. So you can see here at the top, to be the, and then I blanked out what his specific goal was. So that was a very brief statement about what he wanted to achieve and by when. And these were the things that, or the traits which he came up with, which he thought were fundamental to achieving that. Up in the top corner here, he came up with this idea. Some people will do none of these, most people will do some of these, few people will do all of these. World champions will excel in all. You choose which you are. So he was really saying that it was a choice about which ones you do, but it's not just about doing them. If you want to get to the really top end of your potential, in this case at a world championship level, then you had to excel in all of these. So he called this a world-class performance mindset, and he kind of looked at different areas and different attributes that he thought would work for him. So he thought this idea of always wanting to improve was crucial to him being able to keep on developing. So even at the stage he was at, it was a desire that he always had to get better and not kind of rest at where he was. And this is typical of world-class performers, because what this means is that they're actively trying to close the gap on rivals, or actively looking at ways of improving and getting further ahead of their rivals, rather than resting on their laurels and kind of waiting until the others catch them up, by which time it might be too late. The idea of confidence, which of course is not a new idea, but he talked about it in terms of it being unshakable, belief that he's going to be successful. Next one down, he looked at change, and if you want to produce at the very top end of your potential, one of the things that you have to accept, or one of the things that he said that he had to accept, was that change was inevitable. And change is always going to happen regardless of who you are, what situation you're in. It's just that some people, or he thought that in order to become world class, he had to view change as something that he could use to his advantage. So again, it wasn't looking at what was changing, it was looking at how he coped with it and how he turned that into something that was performance driven rather than maybe more emotionally driven and kind of held him back. The level of planning and detail with regards to what he was doing and how he was going to organise himself, he thought that was a very important kind of trait. And becoming organised in different aspects of his life meant that he became more organised as an athlete, and becoming more organised as an athlete meant that he could become more organised with his drive towards excellence. He thought this one was important. It's a really good one, this. Talk to yourself like you would talk to the person you love most in the world. So sometimes athletes will kind of be critical of themselves, and this was about acknowledging that is largely detrimental, and he wanted to talk to himself in a bit more of a positive and less critical and judgmental way. This one's a good one. When times are tough, smile. It'll make you feel better and scare others. Simple body language. We know that people who smile, it makes you feel better. And the added bonus is that if times are really tough, people will wonder what you're smiling about. Where others see fear, see opportunity. Again, kind of refocusing how you perceive things that you might come into contact with or situations, and how you can make them work best for you. The concept of control, and this is kind of a big one in performance psychology, when we look at understanding exactly what you can control and exactly what you can't control, and focusing 99% of your effort on the things that you can control. And what he thought was it was really important that he really understood the factors he could control, and didn't make any misunderstanding between what he could and what he couldn't control. And then once you've got that and you're very clear with that, he thought he could then put all his resources and focus into the right things. Taking personal responsibility, again, another important trait that he spoke about. Take responsibility for everything in his life, and if you don't like it, change it. Really about being a master of your own destiny, rather than being influenced by those around you, and them determining your fate. Optimism, he came up with that one, and again it's another good trait. It looks at when you have setbacks, you see them as being temporary rather than permanent, and therefore you see yourself as being able to overcome them. Proactive rather than being reactive, so actively looking to do things rather than waiting for things to happen, you having to react to them, so being prepared for change. Inquisitive, having a mind that always asks, and those questions are based around how to improve. So not what makes you feel better necessarily, because that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing, but what you want to improve on and how you're going to improve. Being open-minded, this athlete was very open-minded, tried new things, listened to new people. Didn't mean that he changed everything constantly, but meant that he wasn't dismissive of things, and felt that once he had all the information, he was in a better position to make better decisions. Choice, champions choose how to think and feel. So he was taking control and making the right choices, not blaming other people for things that might go on, understanding what he could choose and what he couldn't choose, and that's a very important trait for an athlete who wants to perform to the top end of their potential. And finally, thinking in facts and truths, not emotions. And he thought by doing this, it would allow him to keep things in perspective when times get tough. So rather than getting carried away with himself and perhaps catastrophizing when he came against a setback, by dealing just in facts and truths and not in emotions, he was able to cope with that more effectively, deal with it more effectively, and then get back on track for his kind of target about being world class. So those are some of the traits that this athlete came up with. Some of them are really well, I think a lot of them are really useful, and hopefully you'll be able to take information out of these. You might be able to add to them, you might be able to take some away, but certainly become more conscious of the sorts of traits that are associated with performing at a high level.